and just look through. Hello. We're ready. Maybe that rain will wash off a little bit of that pollen out there. It's so thick. It's like really, really thick. So let's create a new Python program, new Python file. And I want to name this one Chapter 7, Days of Week. Zoom in here a little bit. So this Python script will be the day of the week, and whoops. Sometimes it doesn't matter how many times I do it, I can still be inconsistent. I love change. Hate things being boring. All right, so 423. So we don't want to make this too hard. We just want to have some sample code that's really easy to access so that you don't have it surrounded by a bunch of other things, a bunch of hard work. So let's just declare and initialize a list of days. And of course, whenever we're working with Python, we're going to refer to an array as a list. I don't know why they can't just call things the same thing. So if you remember, when we want to initialize a list with values, we put all of the values within square brackets separated by commas. Since we're doing a list of string values here, each of those values is going to be enclosed within our double quotes. And because Python is pretty friendly to us, anytime you type a comma, you can press enter and go on down to the next line, and it'll handle that okay for you. In some programming languages, we have to be a little more concerned about it. Finally getting my list of all of these days. Now in our list, the first day of the week is Monday. We don't have to worry about that. Of course, you could be in meetings for days about that at work, but that's just how our list came out. So our list is now set. Let's declare an array, another list, to hold the length of each day's name, each string. So I want another array here that's going to tell me how long each of those is. So in our list right now, if I was to look in memory, I would see all of our names. Now I'm drawing this line, this separator, but of course that doesn't exist anywhere. That's just virtual. And you're getting the idea here, Saturday and Sunday. Now, internally, we also have that index entry, that pointer into our list that is unique for each of the values. Now we could choose. So we're going to set up another array, a parallel array. And this array is going to contain a number that says how many letters are in this day. So Monday would have 6. Tuesday, 7. And as we go, we're going to end up with an entry in this parallel array for each of our days of the week that contains a number that tells us the length of that string. Now, we saw last time that we could get that information pretty easily. Let me allocate this array or list as an empty list. I'm going to go ahead and print out a message and say print days using for loop. And then we'll put our for loop. Now, in this for loop, I'm going to be looking at our days list. So for each item in the days list, I want to refer to that as day. So for each day in our days list, I want to do some work. First of all, I want to figure out what the length of that day's name is. We saw that last time, that we could use that len function to get the length of the array. So when I look at this array here, what's our length going to be? 6 or 7? It's early.
The length would still technically be 7, right?
The length is going to be what?
Would the length still be 7?
Yes.
There's still 7 items.
Yep, no, you're right. Trust yourself. You are thinking about it right. Remember, we start that index value at 0. So our highest index value is 6, but the length of the entire array is 7. We have 7 complete entries. So that's what we would get back if we were looking at the length of our entire array. But we're looking at the length here of an individual entry in our array, like Monday. Now, what I would like to do with that is add it to our day length array. So I'm going to put our day length array and say that we want to append and then wrap that length function in our append statement. So now we're saying for this day, get the length of it, append that length to our day length list that we have created here. So if I'm working on Monday, that's going to take that value of 6 and add it to the list. All right, let's print it. Whoops, got my comment. Let's print it out and see what we've got. Let me run that. You want to try it? Let's make sure we don't have any syntax errors or anything. This is a good place to test it. So I'm going to run this program. And what I'm seeing here are the days of the week list, which is great. But let's go ahead and add to our print that length. Now, I can't just print out the length of the day. I have to wrap it in our string function to cast that as a string. We probably want a space in between there. I keep adding here. Now we should be able to print that nicely. We should see Monday is 6, 7, 9, 8, 8, 6, 8, 6. So what we've done now is we've gone through that loop is built this parallel array that has those values in it. Now let's go ahead and try to print out using our indexes. We're going to print each of these entries in our list, our weekdays, using an index. So we're going to change our for loop a little bit. Instead of using our days list to control our for loop, which makes really good sense and works really well and is the way we want to do things, but we have alternatives. So instead of doing that, we're going to use a variable named I, which is really common in programming when we're talking about an index variable. So we're going to use a variable named I in our for loop, and we're going to say that we want I to iterate through the range of 0 through 5. We probably want it to go higher, don't we? But we're just going to try it at 5, so we're missing our last couple of days. Now for that, let's print out what the value of I is. Plus, I want to print out an equal sign. And then we'll print out our list, our days list, using that index I. And I want to print a little bit more. Silly, helpful thing. We'll print out the length of the string. And then I want to print out that actual length. str day length sub I. So notice the difference here. Up here, we're letting this for loop control each of the items we're seeing from our days list. So every time we see an item, we see it as a day. So we're seeing Monday is a day, then Tuesday is a day, then Wednesday is a day. That's the only thing we're seeing. It's a for each loop, basically. That's all we see is that day. So if we want to print out the length of our day, we're having to reissue our length command. We don't have an easy way to access that same entry in our day length array. Now, down here, it looks a little ickier because we're using this I variable and we're executing a for loop that's using it. And we're going to print out the value of I, then the days variable at that location in our array. So if I is 0, we're going to print out Monday. If I is 3, we're going to print out Thursday. Because we're using that I variable to run our loop, now we can access our day length array, our parallel array, also using I. Right? So now we're able to print it out without having to do any special work. So let's run it. So our first bunch of output should be from our for loop that uses our list. And then our second for loop that uses the index is printing out this information below. Now, our for loop that uses I is only printing 5 times. Uh-huh.
I have the exact same code as you, but I'm getting an error.
Yeah, same for me.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah? Can you share? Let me stop sharing so we can see what you got. I bet you guys have the same thing. Okay, show us what you got. So let's see your code. So where your day length is, your day length variable, down there, I should be enclosed in square brackets instead of parentheses. So we should have all of those other parentheses. You might still need another set. Yeah, even PyCharm's like, this is a lot of stuff. Perfect. So those square brackets can be really, really hard to see when you're looking. That's the zoom helps, but it is still hard to see. What about yours? Is that what yours is?
No.
Okay. Can you share? thank you guys for sharing. It really helps everybody, I think, when we see everybody's problems. And it's so teeny, it's really good eye exercise. We should make everybody go through and change that setting so you can scroll. Okay, so what's it say? Print day. Day is an invalid argument.
Extra fee at the end of day line. That's good.
You see it? Oh. And we want, is that inside those square brackets? Is that I?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know how to enlarge my screen.
No, you can't without doing a lot of work, so you're fine.
Some give me an error. There's this day right here. It's red for some reason.
Print.
Right here. Yeah.
There's no plus sign there.
There's stuff.
Or did you? The other, the thing, okay.
Perfect.
There we go.
Yay. Okay, good job, you guys. Okay, so I want to leave that program as is. Let me share mine again here. Don't want to mess with it anymore. So let's make some comments if you want. I'm going to stop there and let you take a couple of seconds to comment it because we have some pretty simple array access. And that's what I want you to have an example of so that you don't have all that really fancy stuff. That's mine. All right, let's do another one here. In this program that we're going to create, we want to ask what the sales were for a given day. And then we're going to summarize everything, sales for the week, get the lowest and the highest, try to keep track of all that information to output. So let's see if we can do this one. I want to create a new Python file. And I'm going to call it Chapter 7, Total Sales. So I'd like to have some separate modules or functions. We're going to have our main, we're going to have a function to prompt for input. And let's see what else. And do our output. Now, the example that I have, the processing kind of happens in the main. So maybe as we're creating this program, we can improve it and make it a little bit more modular so that we don't have that work going on in our main function. Because we'd like our main function to stay as simple as possible. Just call a few other functions is our best idea. So let's start out with some comments. So we're going to collect daily sales and summarize for the week. The first method that we need, or function that we need, is our input, and let's call that prompt user. We've seen that if we use that word input, it's kind of confusing to Python. That's too much one of their functions, so we'll make it way different. In our prompt user function, it would be really nice if we could prompt them with something meaningful, like maybe the number, the day number. So let's use that and say that we need that passed to us as a parameter, the day number. Now the day number, we're going to assume is being passed to us as an index value from a list. So the first thing we're going to do is add one to it for within our input module. We're going to form a message instead of just using a parameter for our input statement. And we're going to have our message say, enter sales for day number Okay, so we've got our hashtag to show up the day number, and then we're using our variable day num. So it should say enter sales for day, hashtag 1, hashtag 2, whatever, for the different day numbers. Now, after they type something in, we're going to return it. We want to return it as a float or an integer. What do you think? Integer seems more logical. Now our input prompt is going to be our message variable, and then I'm going to add a space to the end of it just because I can. And so I want you guys to think about how so many ways you can format those things. Now I'm going to put a comment there after that. Return integer based on message prompt. All right, so that should fix up that function. That should be everything that we need in it. So it's going to do a lot of our work, right? So let's define our main. We need to get our output defined also, but we can test our input stuff first. So let's declare our list variables. We know that we're going to be keeping track of the sales for the week in a list. So we'll just call that list sales. Now these sales we're going to keep track of using our day number as our index, right? So just like our array up here that we were looking at earlier, in this example, we're going to end up with a sales amount in each of those list entries. Now, I'd like to keep track of the high sales number. And according to our specs, we need to keep track of the high sales amount and the number, the day number that occurred. So instead of just creating a high variable where I keep track of one thing, I'm going to set this up as a list, and I'm going to keep track of two things. So first, in our list, we'll say this is a 2-item list. Item 0 is our high sales amount. 1 equals the day number that occurred. Okay. Now we're going to do the same thing with our low sales. But for low, we want to start out with a number that's really, really big. That's really big. We shouldn't have sales any bigger than that. So that the first time someone enters sales, we should populate both our high and low number. So again, this is a 2-item list. 0 equals our low sales amount, and item 1 equals the day number that occurred. Now we need to keep track of the total also, the total sales. So now we could execute a list or a for loop, use a for loop to prompt for days and amounts. Now in our for loop, we're going to control it with a variable I, and we're going to make our range really limited. Now we really wouldn't want to do this for real in our sales collection app, but we don't want to be sitting here testing this thing forever. So we're just going to make it a really short execution 3 times. So for each time we execute, let's ask the user what our sales for the day was. If I can type prompt user. So our I variable will be iterating from 0, so we can use it as our day number variable. We'll use our prompt user function to ask the user what the sales were for that day, and we'll save the value that they type in our sales day variable. Now we want to add that to our sales array. So we'll use that append function. We want to add it to our total sales, the sales for the day. And then we want to check to see if it's a high or a low. Now Python actually has some functions we could use for this where we wouldn't need to do it ourselves, but we can do it ourselves too, so it's kind of nice to have the sample code. But we can check with an if statement. If the item in our sales array that we just added is greater than our high sales value, which is at position 0 of our high list, then we want to update our high list, because now this one should become the highest one. And then we need to save the day. What day was it? Oh, whatever the value of I is, was our day number. So if our new sales is higher, if new sale are higher, save the new sales amount as highest, and save the day number as highest day. So that's what we're doing there. So this is where sometimes our pseudocode starts looking a little bit more different than our code. Now, what do I want to do to figure out if this sale is actually the lowest? Same type thing, if statement. If the sales at sub I, the sales for today, is less than our low sales that we have saved, then we want to update our low sales that we have saved using this one. And we want to save our day number. Okay, so let's put comments there. If new sales are lower, save the new sales amount as lowest and save the day number as lowest day. Let's test and make sure everything's working so far. I need to put in a call for my main. And then I should be able to run. Okay, so I've got a prompt. Enter sales for day number 1. I'll say 3,500. And day number 2, 2,300 and 1,200. So it took all my input. We should have calculated all of our total and got our arrays all set up. So now we're ready to output all of our information. I'm going to go up to before the main to declare our output mod function. Our output function is going to be output sales. Now this function is going to need some information to be able to do its job. It's going to need to know what that total sales amount ended up being. It's going to need our high list. And remember, our high list has the high amount and the high day number. And it's going to need our low list. And then it should just be able to print some stuff out. Let's see, the total sales for the week are, I'm going to put a $sign. I'd like to do some formatting here to make sure that everything looks good. We can use some formatting in Python. There's lots of different ways. I'm going to show you an example here. We can say that we want to print out parameter 0 with 2 decimal places as a fixed integer. And then after our closing double quote, we can say we wanted to format the total variable. We'll do that again, don't worry. So what we're looking at here with this formatting is within the curly braces, within our string. Notice that this formatting specifier is within the double quotes of our string. We have these opening and closing curly braces. And within that curly braces, we're specifying this formatting pattern. And the pattern is just saying that we have one item, :0, and we want it to be formatted with 2 decimal places as a fixed number. Then after our string closes, we use the period or the dot and specify we want the format function to use our total variable. So there's always new ways to print things and to format things. That's the great thing about programming. You can always find something to entertain yourself. Now the lowest sales were, I'm going to do some formatting here again, :0, comma, .2 for fixed output, close curly brace. I want this string to keep going, so I'm going to say on day number. Now what I want to format is our output, our low number array. Item 0 should be first. And then the second thing to output should be item 1 of our low number array. But I want to add 1 to it because it's a day number. Now let's just copy that. Please. And let's make it say the highest. Highest sales were on day, and then instead of formatting our low array, we want to format our high array. Now we need to call our output sales. We want to do that in our main. So after our for loop is done, so we want it to be indented the same level as the for loop, we want to call output sales. We're going to pass it our tote sales variable, our high list, and our low list. Now this is a good one for at home to use the debugger and step through the code and really be thinking about what's going on, because we have a lot of things happening in a small amount of code. I'm going to run it, and I see my first prompt. I'm going to try to make a high day and a low day so that I can tell that that's working properly. And so altogether I get the total sales are 5,000, which is correct. Notice how we have the 2 decimal places and we have a comma. So that F, that fixed format, says it should be a number formatting that includes a comma every 3 places. Now we're saying that the lowest was 1,200 on day number 2, which looks right for what I entered. And the highest was 2,500 on day number 1. So everybody's working okay. This one is kind of crazy. Got it, got it. Okay, save it. Okay, said it's a good one to use the debugger with on your own. Really be thinking about it. You know, spend some time. Like to kid people, if you need to put on your aluminum foil cap, do that. Whatever it takes, really, really think, really think. Okay, let's look at our group assignment. Let you guys do this yourself. Okay, let's see who we've got here that I need to. Our first group, everybody's here. Second group, John is not here. Third group, everybody's here. Let's see who I need to move around. I'll do that while we're looking at the assignment. These are our groups, and I will just move some people around a little bit based on who's absent. Let's take a look at the assignment. This is a new assignment. And you do have another assignment this week called Glitch in Image. Don't worry about that one. We'll take a look at it next time. No big deal. All right, so found this case study here, and I had to print it as 2 separate PDF documents. So it has the code and everything for you, but it's a bit different of a program than anything we've done because it's sort of like an AI type thing. So non-directive psychotherapy, it's going to ask some questions and help you do some things. So I want you to try it. So have some fun with it. With your team, draw a hierarchy chart to document the relationship between functions. The code is supplied. You're just going to be documenting how the functions are set up. Work together to actually enter that code because we don't have a way to copy and paste it so much off the PDF. Research any code that you don't understand. So there's going to be some that you might have to do some looking up as a group. That's fine. The document ends with a statement implying that further work can be done if you look at the exercises, but you don't have access to those suggested projects. So with your group, come up with 2 ideas for how you might improve things. So what you're going to submit, and you only need to make 1 submission for your group, is the hierarchy chart. So I don't care if it's hand-drawn and someone takes a picture of it with their phone, or if you use Visio, or if you find some sort of diagramming tool online that lets you draw a hierarchy chart. It's really going to be short, kind of like that one over there that we just did. So it doesn't need to be super fancy. The Python code, and then your short report. And in your report, besides the ideas you had for improving the system, tell me about your testing experience. Were you able to make the psychotherapy thing behave badly? Let's take a look at it. I'm going to bring up the first couple of pages. So we're going to do a little bit of ELIZA and see how you can do with all of this. So basically you're going to be outputting just a little bit of text information and be doing some random numbers so that you decide what choices to make. Okay, questions about it? Feel free to change it, update it as a group, however you like. All right, so our people then, I think there's a couple still that I need to move. Alan is here, but not here. Okay, see if you can find your group. I know we have a few. I think everybody should be here that I've got in groups. Okay, so where's group 1? Raise your hand. Oh, there's awesome group 1. Now you guys decide where you want to go. Where's group 2? Okay, you guys are missing John up here in the front, but I figured you'd be okay without it. You're all right. Okay, where's group 3? Okay, again, you guys decide where you want to go. And what about group 4? Okay, great. You guys are decide where you want to be. Anybody that I did it that isn't in a group yet, that didn't raise their hand? You're in one?
No.
I moved you so that you would be. Okay. We're going to fix you then. You're going to go in group 2. So, these guys, the black hat group. Can you fit in with them? Thanks, Adam. I thought I had you moved in the right spot, but I didn't. It jumped back. Okay, so just get to work on that. Don't forget, start on the project that's due tonight. Check with your group mates. Do they need help? How's everybody doing on that? Should we wipe it out first? That's going to be up to you as a group.
Wasn't it due Thursday though? Yeah, I did tonight.
Sorry. Sorry.
What?
I just like to scare you. I try to not say dates at all because I always say it wrong. Let me check. You found your people, Erin? Okay, great. You got it. Where did it stick this thing? Okay, we get
Another thing I guess is the chapter 5 question we don't know. Last time I was trying to build it. And then it's the last question.
Do I? See what it does. Thank you. Excuse me. What is going on? Thank you.
You're gonna be back in trouble with that weird main statement, number 2.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's called that brain question. Yeah, you have to call it.
That is great.
Oh, you know, these are good. What's that on that?
Something like that.
So we have to look at this Thursday.